Joining us now on the Oakland County MegaCast is James Scrivo, principal for Scotch Elementary. Thank you for being with us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Are you ready?
That's a great question. Are we ready? Of course we're ready. We're very excited to start school back up. Obviously there's a lot of balls in the air right now. We have been literally planning this day since March 13th when we closed our doors. Teachers want their kids in their rooms. Parents want their kids back at school, but we want to make sure 100% that we're doing it as safely as we possibly can.
I know you are a longtime educator. You come from a family of educators. In your wildest dreams, did you ever think that you would have to go through something like this?
Never in a million years. No.
So
no. My first week of school, the second week of school, September 11th happened. And I was, a very young man in a classroom with a lot of faces and a lot of young hearts, and I didn't know how to get through that day. I had a lot of family in New York, and you couldn't reach anybody through the cell towers. And I thought that was going to be probably one of the hardest days I'd ever have to get through. A lot of my parents always spoke about John F. Kennedy, knowing where they were when that moment happened. And I still have that very vividly in my mind. But it looks like, as life would have it, that there's something else that we're going to remember pretty well. And it'll be the year that we close school in 2000.
What's so hard for this is so many people are looking to our educators and principals and, superintendents to lead them through this time in this crisis. But on the same time, you're learning and trying to adjust just right along with the public.
I couldn't agree more. And, we're going to need the public. My stakeholders are my parents, right? And my customers are my kids. We're going to need them to be gracious and to be patient. We're going to obviously make mistakes as we go, but like all good teachers, we're going to fix it as we do it. And we're going to fix any of the problems that we have. And we're never going to fail when it comes to the students' safety or their health. But, we are going to make mistakes. Like maybe I'm going to have the car line going in the wrong direction tomorrow or Wednesday, Thursday, and it's going to back up onto Hiller. And then the police are going to come. Those are all things that we can fix, right? We do something where it's that someone's health is at stake. I can't necessarily fix that. So we want to be as prepared as we possibly can. And like I said earlier, we've been preparing for this since pretty much March 13th. We have had no summer break. I've been on Zoom so much that I have to go to the eye doctor today and get my eyes checked. I can't see anymore. I can't even read 12 font. I got to get a better function. The computer, you know what I mean?
You're not alone in that. I will say, I think we've all become Zoom experts, right?
Yeah, whether we wanted to or not, yeah.
James Scrivo with us, principal of Scotch Elementary School, with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. And James, you mentioned that a lot of the focus has been on planning for the safety of the students. What is going to be different at Scotch Elementary School specifically that parents and students should be prepared for as they return to school?
That's a great question. We've done everything that we think we can. I mean, the CDC put out quite a few guidelines, things that they requested and things that they suggested. Our district chose to go with all requested and then whatever they suggested as well, which I think is important because that takes it to the next step. We've crossed off every box that we possibly could have for the CDC, with the exception of mass testing. We're not in control of the testing and who gets tested. So that's something that's out of our hands. When that happens, we obviously will follow suit with procedure with the governor and the state and or the country does, and we'll follow suit with that as well. Something that's different is for years, Scotch has lined kids up outside. We call it our bus lines. It doesn't really matter. We have a blacktop area where the kids line up before they enter the building. We do it in rain as long as it's not pouring, as long as it's just sprinkling. We do it in snow, and we do it as long as it's above 0 degrees. That's a place where kids got to see each other in the morning. They come running up, they're excited. We build the momentum for going in. It's kind of the way you enter the building. But now, things have changed. We're only going to have half of our students coming in at a time with our AM cohort and our PM cohort. But even where they're standing is going to be 6 feet apart, both vertically and horizontally. And that's a big change. They're going to come in one at a time, trying to remain physically distanced as they enter. They're going to enter and go to their exact spot in their seat in their classroom, which is 15 or less students, which will be 6 feet apart. They're never going to leave that classroom for the 2 hours and 40 minutes that they're in there. They will be going outside for a mask break, but even that area is going to be cordoned off, so you can have more than one class outside at a time taking a mask break, because they're only here for 2 hours and 40 minutes. It kind of makes it difficult to go outside. But we're going to give the kids what they need so they can be successful. We realize wearing a mask is going to be difficult for 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds and 7-year-olds. So that's going to be somewhere where that's going to be something that we have to teach the students. How can we do this? And you're going to have to build up a tolerance to wearing a mask. As we've started school back up, and I've been back to school in the building physically for the last month or so, it's taken me time to build up my ability to wear a mask. I was able to do it going to Kroger, going to Ace Hardware when you're in and out, but wearing it consistently for hours on end is difficult. We all have respects for the frontline workers, the doctors and the nurses, but you start to at least get a little bit of an effect of what they've been going through since March.
Yeah, I think one of the things for us with glasses, too, it's hard because the glasses fog up, so you have to navigate that as well. And so you kind of touched on, these are younger kids. I mean, you're going to have, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, and 7-year-olds. And if, for some of them, they are young and they learn quickly. However, they are still kids. Put the mask aside, it's socially distancing. How are you going to keep them from running up, hugging their playmate that maybe they haven't seen all summer?
To be truthful, I have no idea how we're going to stop that. I mean, that's our human instinct. We are social creatures. One of the words that you used, you said social distancing. I'm really trying to change that because it's so ingrained in my head, and I want to use physical distancing, right? Because we are social people, and we should want to run up and hug our friends. I know I struggle with when somebody comes up to me, first thing I want to do is grab their hand and shake their hand, or put my arm on their shoulder and just kind of let them know that I'm here. So I think we're going to struggle with that in the beginning, and we're really going to have to teach the kids that maybe finding a way that they can greet each other that's different. I've heard the radio commercials about how to greet people. That was early on in the summer, but I think there's a lot to that. If we can figure out a way to change the way they greet each other, that might work, because they need to socially interact, and they're going to want to hug each other. So that is going to be a struggle. Your question is valid, and I can't say we don't always know the answer. So we'll learn as we go, and we'll try to, we'll try and curtail that where we can. And the last thing you want is us running over and pushing some kid out of the way so they don't hug each other, right? But you also want to make sure that you're maintaining a safe distance, and you're making sure that they're safe and they're keeping the other person that they would hug safe as well. So I think that's a hurdle that we'll cross on day one, and continue to as we move forward, and teaching the kids how they can physically distance and socially distance appropriately.
Yeah, I think I saw early on in the crisis where they were suggesting the 6-foot distance. Someone had created this, basically with pool noodles and measured it out. It was we need a bunch of little suits or something for kids and adults. So, I know that you guys are doing remote as well. I saw on the website this morning about some of the issues with Canvas. Can you talk a little bit about that? What is that program, and is this just a matter of you still have a few days to try to get this up and running?
So Canvas is a platform that we can share out information, and teachers can create their virtual classroom. Google Classroom was great, but it didn't have as many options as Canvas had, and it didn't communicate with PowerSchool as well as we would have liked. So Canvas is a different platform that allows us to communicate with PowerSchool, and that's where we keep all of our student information, all of our student and parent emails. It's our warehouse of information, if you will, or an online emergency card. It's our EMR if we were, emergency medical records, but it's our records of all of our students that is online. Canvas talks to that computer system or that program much better than Google does, or Google Classrooms did. And the options that you can do things with Canvas, like loading videos and creating different types of things with Flipgrid, it lends itself so much better. One of the issues that we had, because I wouldn't really call it an issue, but one of the problems that we came into was we loaded quite a few students onto Laker Online, and that delayed our process of rolling over Power School. So basically, when we say rolling over Power School, if kids were in second grade, then they would be in third grade. We're working diligently to get that completed, and I know that's been done in the last couple of days. And I believe right now Canvas will be up and running as soon as we really get into the heart of teaching. But I got to tell you, that's not my concern right now. Starting school back up, these first few weeks of school, all I want my teachers to do is build relationships with kids, can reconnect with kids. And I mean, let's be honest, they haven't been in school for 6 months. They're going to need to relearn some of our procedures. Not everybody. Some people will come right back and they'll get it like that. But like you said, not everybody is going to learn. Some are going to want to hug. Some are going to want to take their masks off. So we got a lot of procedural things that we're going to need to teach. And I think these first 2 weeks partially will be that, but more importantly, we'll be building that relationship with those kids.
So how do you go about that? Because a lot of these new teachers are going to be with students that they haven't had before, they haven't met before. They're meeting in half capacity at a time with their cohorts, or some are going to be entirely online, and there's different dynamics that are at play, even more variables than previously. So what suggestions have you provided to your teachers and maybe even the parents to help facilitate the building of those relationships?
Great question, and it's fair and it's valid. I don't disagree. You're never going to know those kids. I think one thing, the virtual teacher has a little bit of a step up on the in-person teacher because they're not wearing a mask. If you're on Zoom, I'm talking to you right now, I have no mask on, obviously. The teacher does, and when you cover up that face, it changes your whole perspective of what you're seeing when you're talking with that person. And it's hard to read their mannerisms. Are they laughing? Are they smiling? Are they not? And that does add a layer of, that adds a whole new layer to the teaching aspect. Our school in West Bloomfield, Scotch Elementary School, we're a Capturing Kids' Hearts school. And that is a nationally recognized program, and we're a nationally honored school. For the last 3 years, we've gotten that honor. And we pride ourselves with building relationships with kids. So starting from how you build your social contract with your classroom, which is basically your classroom rules and what you're going to follow. But it goes beyond rules, and it's how we're going to treat each other and how we're going to listen to each other. And most importantly, how we're going to deal with each other when we have conflict. Because inevitably, you will have conflict with one another. And then how do you move past that? But nevertheless, there's ways to connect with kids virtually. I did videos throughout the school year where I would just randomly send a video out to the students, and I would talk about nonsense. But I would bring up a story from my childhood, or I would just to stay connected with my students and my families. I also called every family member in our school and talked to them. Or I called every student, all like 350 of them over the summer, and just talked to them before the school year ended. And that was important. That was a simple way to do it. Someone might say it's old school to use the phone instead of tweeting someone, but you got to talk to the person. And parents were so appreciative that I did something as simple as call them. And for me, it was a no-brainer. I just did it. But they were so appreciative of that. And just sending an email possibly or whatever. There's a million ways to stay connected with your kids and to build those relationships. And I think it's doable both from the virtual end and from obviously the in-person end, because that's all we've ever done.
James Scrivo, principal, Scotch Elementary School. And while we're talking about virtual, the one thing during this crisis that became so evident was the digital divide. I know that West Bloomfield has done a great job of trying to reach out to all the students to make sure that they do have the tools. Where does that stand, and is that still a big concern for you that some of these kids don't have the capacity, even if maybe they have the a Chromebook, maybe their space at home isn't a private safe space, or there are distractions that you can't provide, that you can't make that a non-distracted space for them because everyone's at home living condition and situation is different.
You bring up a great point, and that's again, you're only one person or you're only one district. I think our district has gone above and beyond what they have needed to provide every single child in our district with a device, with the internet if we needed to. We've provided hotspots for students. I think over 100 different families received hotspots from us so they could grab the internet. And then this year we purchased all new Chromebooks for every one of our students. And we did that so we could push out the materials through that Chromebook, obviously through our internet provider. We were able to push out that information right directly to that Chromebook. So we didn't have to worry about if you had a different device, if yours was a Dell, if yours was an Apple, did Chrome work with that? This way we know the kids all have what they need. And we're still actually handing out devices even up until today. Parents will be able to pick up the devices at the high school if they have not received one yet. But the divide between those that have and those do not have that don't have it, I'm always going to be concerned with that. We took it upon ourselves to make sure that everybody in our district was provided with those devices, but there are certainly going to be districts that cannot do that. And what do? Are you forced into a situation where you have to go back in person, or do you figure out another way to do it? I think putting packets together and continuing to build those relationships with kids can be done, but obviously having the devices and being able to talk to students through those devices is definitely something that we appreciate that we were able to do with our administration team and our leaders in this district.
The district has done a great job, and you've had more time since March to be able to try to get a plan in place. I do want to ask you, because I was just telling Tyler, I've been trying to find like disinfectant spray. And I know that the schools, you buy things in batch and you've been provided with funds for PPE. Where does that stand? And are you worried that supplies are going to run out as you go through the, for even the first semester?
No, I'm not worried at all about that. I'm watching things come in this building daily. You got to remember too, we're like one of 3 buildings or 3 school districts in Oakland County. I think there's a few more. We're one of 3 in our vicinity that are going back to school, right? So if we needed more material, they wouldn't be buying it right now, right? Because they're not in person. They're all at home. So that should help us in some regards. Now, obviously, we order in months in advance for our cleaning materials and our PPE and stuff. But I've watched things come in the last day. We were able to give each classroom teacher a complete setup of what they would need for PPE. They have hand sanitizer, Kleenex, extra masks for students that don't bring a mask, extra masks for them. We also ordered specific masks that they wanted. If they wanted an N95 mask, if they wanted to wear their own personal mask and then have a face shield over it, we ordered that for them. We also ordered each classroom a spray bottle. We have chemicals that are approved by the FDA in our school district that they can be able to, cleaning materials, that is appropriate for schools and kids and for desktops, and that will kill most bacteria that it's on the tables and microbes. But we've done everything that we can think of that can help a teacher. And we also provided, I can show you right now on my desk since I'm in my office, each classroom received 2 hand sanitizers. We have extra in the building if we need them. The office has them. Our reading consultants have them for their room. Each classroom was provided with a not PVC. It's a glass divider that sits like an X, so you could have small groups, and it's broken up by that plexiglass so that you're able to work with kids and it's see-through. So I think our district has done an amazing job. Now, you brought up a point. Are you worried about things running out? You never know what's going to happen. I would never have thought in my entire life that I would go to the grocery store and I wouldn't be able to get toilet paper. But for a good 3 months, you had to search for toilet paper. So could something like that happen? Absolutely. And we will deal with it and we will figure it out. And if my district has shown me anything, we'll go to the nth degree to figure out a problem. And the way we work together, I think we'll be able to solve just about anything that we come across.
Yeah, I think the search now is paper towels. We're able to get toilet paper, but not paper towels. Real quickly, we just have a minute or two left with you. One of the things we're seeing at so many of the other schools, mainly college campuses right now, you have an outbreak. What happens if you have several cases, and even if it's one classroom, how are you guys going to handle that? Will that classroom, per se, then have to go remote? Do you have a plan in place?
It's a great question. It's a fair question. We will follow the CDC guidelines, and now that Oakland County has given us a little bit more direction on what they want, each district has kind of been told by their, the governor said or the president down to the governor said each district will make their own decisions on going back to school. Well, one of our concerns of our parents and our staff is what happens if someone does have COVID. Now, when and if they do, we have quarantine rooms. We have med techs on staff who will be watching those kids. Those kids will never be alone, but they will be isolated from their class if they come up with the symptoms that are recommended by the CDC to keep your eyes out for. They have a fever. We have to treat every fever like they have COVID right now. So they will go into an isolation room. Seating charts are a huge thing in classrooms this year, because if that person was within somebody else for a matter of 15 minutes, if they were in that 6-foot space, those individuals have to be also notified, their parents, and their guardians and whatnot. So there is a procedure that follows suit. We actually call over to the administration building. We talk to one of the secretaries over there. She starts the log. She informs the county. The county then does they do their own investigation, right? And they track back wherever that individual was for I believe 2 to 3 days, and they try and go back anyone that they may have had contact with. Is there somewhere where that makes a connection, or is it simply just one individual? And that's just a small piece of that plan that we have in place now, if and when that happens.
James Scrivo, principal of Scotch Elementary School. You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. We thank you so much for being on the Oakland County MegaCast. Anything I didn't ask or we didn't ask that you want to let your parents and your students and your teachers know before we let you go?
First and foremost, thank you for having me on. I truly appreciate it. I always feel honored when I get to discuss West Bloomfield and the things we do for kids. If I could say one thing, I'd like to say thank you to like 3 sets of individuals. Number one, I want to say thank you to my administration for the work that they put together, the team of administrators that are in West Bloomfield that's helped put this plan together, and the hours that they have worked. Along with our administration team, our teachers have put in countless hours. Our cloud to classroom and cloud care and kids club, all these individuals that have put these plans in place to get us back to school. It's countless hours. I wanted to thank them. And I want to thank our parents and our students for sticking with us, for trusting us. And I hope that they know that we are doing what we can to bring them back to school, to give them a sense of normalcy. And we're going to do our best to do that as safely as we possibly can.
Well, thank you so much, and we wish you and your team the best of luck as you navigate back to school.